come from the National Institutes of Health. I've done this before. This is the same study. I did this a couple years ago, I do believe. It might be 2 years ago. I think it was a couple years ago. I did this when I think it was called Hidden Figures. You're talking about the count and the difference between the number of children that black men actually sire or have versus the number of children that black women have. Got to remember, there's almost 2 million more black women than there are black men. So let's take that into consideration. That's number one. First of all, there's more black women than there are black men. Even though we get credited for having or being responsible for all the problems that black women have, I think that's unfair. And what I found out was that there's 15% more. There's 15% more children that black women have versus black men. So let us start. Get us a pen and get us a highlighter, okay? Because the first thing I found when I was doing the numbers, okay, because they went into percentages of how many black men didn't have kids, blah blah blah. Okay, that was curious, but when you start digging into the numbers, it gets more curious. Like these are the females or women, and these are the men. All right, and amongst black men, okay, now we don't know exactly how they classified these people, but all we can do is go by the numbers that we have. Black women have, okay, this is in millions, 8,407,000 children, right? That they have, right? That were born or propagated by them, right? And black men have 7,200,000. That's like an order of 1.2 million, give or take, right? And when I did the calculation, I'm not going to do it here. I did the calculation, 1.2 over 8.4 roughly gave you 14.9%. Somewhere around there, 14.7, I think 14.7, 14.9, somewhere around there, almost 15%, right? So that was a wake-up call to me that, a lot of these single mothers and all this kind of stuff they're blaming on black men are probably not true. It's probably not as bad as they make it seem to be. And some of this stuff, I believe a lot of this stuff, at least 15% of this stuff, is probably coming from them having babies with other men that aren't marrying them. Not saying all, but saying I think it's like 50% of the problem is coming from non-black men, or what we consider non-black men. So that 15%, give or take, right, starts showing up. Like black women's fertility, okay, 61% of black women between the ages of 15 and 49 had children, right? which is funny because versus all women. Oh boy, this is hilarious. Versus all women, right? All women is 57%. So even fertility, okay, they have more children. 41% of black mothers live live with their children's father when their first child is born, right? 41% versus 76%. All good, right? And we blame that on the men, right? But if you look on the other side of black men's fertility, black men are a lot closer to all men. It's almost even, right? So it's almost no difference between black men and all men as far as having children, right? Between ages 50 and 49, if we count it the same way that everybody else counts it, right? Virtually no difference. Even to the point where 60% of black fathers live with their child's mother when their first child is born, married or cohabitating, versus 76%. It's not the same. It's not as close as this one up here, but very close to all men. Black men are not really that far outside the norm. They're not the way that they propose it to be. But the thing is, notice the gap. Notice the gap here, right? 46 minus 46, 61%. That's a pin. Gotta find some space. Probably made too much. Put it up here. 61 minus 46 equals what? 15, right? 15%. Right? Even down here, that's even worse. 66% minus 41 is what? Here we goes again, right? 15. Actually, it's 25. Actually, that's 25%. That's hilarious. But you notice the 15% infertility, right? And it's 25% of black men that live with their kids versus with their fathers versus 41%. So basically, if 66%, if there's a 25% gap, man, where are all these? Who are these women having babies with? Who are these women having babies with? It's not us. According to these stats, it's not us. That's a 25% gap. Where is that? That's a 25% gap. That's a 25% gap. But they blame it on us. Now, if these studies are correct, now these is the National Center of Health Statistics. This is not black men doing this. This is the federal government making these stats. But again, if you look at the fertility rate, right, and the numbers that are counting, that 15% shows up. 15% difference shows up of who had kids at the age of 15, 49. And that stuff is pervasive. So the thing is, I don't know who these black women having babies with, but it ain't us. Because according to this, we're in the home. According to this, according to these figures, we're not that far off from all other men. We're not the worst. We're not the best, but we're not the worst. We're not that far off from all other men. If you look at it, who had biological children, who's the problem? It's not us. It's these people. So I just thought that was interesting, right? That these percentages keep showing up. And this shocked me because I thought it was 15%. I miscalculated. This 25%. And they say fathers are not in the home. But they don't say who's the father. Okay, so now who's the daddy, right? Or basically, who's Zaddy? Who is Zaddy? Because I do believe there's a gap, right? There's a with black women, there's fathers that are counted probably like unknown. They couldn't come up with the. That's probably a percentage unknown. But thing is, if you look at the Latino men, especially now the Latino men, I like to delve into them more because that's where the biggest gap is between the number of babies born, babies sired versus babies born. But there are more Latino men than Latino women. So evidently, the excess Latino men would make sense get with the excess black women. So that would actually make sense. So basically, what's going on is that there's a poppy epidemic, right, in the black community that black men are actually getting blamed for. I don't know, y'all. See what you think. Anyway, this is BGS out. I will see you guys on the next one.